So thank you all for attending. I'm here today to give you a sneak peek, actually, on some practice of how to design a 360 degrees DevOps operating model. It is industry agnostic, but I work in financial services, so all the examples are inspired by that industry. A little bit about me. I'm heading the DevOps and quality engineering practice at Capco. We are a management consulting firm based in London with presence globally, and we have expertise on transforming financial service institutions, both from a business and tech perspective. So I'm a management consultant by occupation. I have a little bit more than 12 years of experience in financial services industry. I've been both in the industry, meaning employed by banks, but also a consultant for banks, as I do at the moment. My portfolio includes British, French, and Nordic banks. So basically, I've seen, to put it away, how DevOps is being done in different regions of the world, and also what is the business appetite, user appetite, but also regulatory environment. And my DevOps favorite is site reliability engineering, so that's the topic I like the most. I have had the pleasure to author a book that is called Industrializing Financial Services with DevOps, which is this one. And actually, I saw it to you because we're going to do a giveaway at the end. So we have 5 copies here. And for the people physically present in the room, the first 5 questions I get, and I don't know you, I can barely see you actually, so it's going to be really random. We're going to hand over a copy to you, so it's going to be really my true pleasure. I would like to thank the organizers and also my publisher, Pact, for this opportunity. Let's go a little bit on the agenda because we have a lot to cover. I'll try to be crisp and I'm using a lot of visuals not to bore you with words. So I would like to get started by introducing the concept of multi-speeds and relevance. And you gotta see what I mean. I've seen in most of the DevOps adoptions I've been part of, people omitting understanding different speeds in organization and relevance. So for me, this is key on understanding how to design a DevOps operating model. I'm gonna tell you the importance of setting the scene of what you want to achieve. We'll give you a skeleton of a complete model, and then I'm gonna double click in some specific domains. I'm gonna speak about the value proposition of enterprise architecture, the software development lifecycle, a tactical adoption, a simple framework of how you can synchronize your organization. It's gonna make sense as we move on. And then I'm gonna talk about the biggest challenge, which is how do you realize benefits. So it's gonna be a big investment. How do you prove to your bosses, to put it that way, and sponsors that you did well invest and not waste their money? Let's get started. So basically, multi-speeds and relevance is two, for me, concepts that define how you can adopt DevOps at scale in organizations. So basically, when I talk about speed, it is the appearance of different speed levels in a situation, which in our case is a bank, and its sub-situations, which is different areas within a bank. So a bank, and talking about an incumbent one, not really about a neobank, has different business lines that move into different speeds. And then basically these speeds across along with other parameters provide the term of relevance as well. So what is relevant, considering the subject, which is DevOps, to the situation, which is a bank, and to sub-situations within a bank. So speeds and relevance can be created in 2 ways. One is natural. So basically, what is your business domain and what is the regulatory demand? That, for instance, can tell you that you must release weekly. Or it can be constructed based on intentions, which is actually ambitions and ability. So you have great people, they're very ambitious, they want to release on demand. Several parameters that define speed and relevance, I have it in here. So basically, time to market requirements, service reliability requirement, compliance, your technological stack, your architecture, and go on. So I know it sounds a little bit blurry, so let me illustrate it and provide some examples to make it a little bit more vivid to you. So suppose we have a bank and it has 2 different business lines. It has capital markets and retail. I'm going to focus on capital markets because this is where I'm coming from. In capital markets, you have 2 areas. One is called front office trading. So basically, this is an area that trades assets. In our case, we trade equities. And then you have middle office end of day, which is where accounting and risk management primarily takes place. Suppose now think that we have 2 different applications, right? The one in front office has 99% availability requirements. The time to market is daily, so you need to be able to release at the end of every day. The data processing is real time, so you get prices from the stock exchange, you make it till capture, it flows directly down and is being reflected to your books. The platform is cloud native. That doesn't necessarily mean it runs in public cloud, but it runs under certain cloud native characteristics. And the business users are equity traders. For the ones that you have worked in the financial service industry, you know equity traders or traders have zero patience, zero tolerance for mistakes. It's a real-time business, big commissions, right? They can even slap you, to put it that way. I have heard stories. It didn't happen to me, to others. And then you have middle office. Middle office is a little bit more end of day. So when the markets close and things happen. So availability is lower. Time to market is weekly, maybe not even weekly, monthly will be enough. It's batch processed. So you get all the trading activity, then end of day runs, the sequence of batches, they do mathematics, they process data, and then you get P&L numbers and risk numbers and stuff. The platform is legacy, so it's not really cloud native. Think about a monolithic, typical 3-tier architecture or a huge data warehouse of Oracle, and the business users are financial controllers. So basically here you can see that within the bank, within the same capital markets area, you have two different speeds and two different situations. Front office equity trading needs to move faster, and its characteristics make it to have more relevance to a DevOps evolution than middle office. I know it sounds very simplistic, but if you have worked in a big organization, you can identify yourself these different elements of sector relevance. So in the coming slides, this is a little bit of the thought process. So you're gonna see how you can slice using different frameworks, speeds and relevance on the way you do it. Now, getting back to the basics. So a skeleton for a 360-degree DevOps operating model. A 360 degrees in this case stands for complete. So basically you go around all the capabilities, all that you need to do. I break it normally down to 3 phases. So what you need to do, you need to provide direction, orchestration. You have a governance body that holds the vision. You have different centers of excellence. You have ways of working, organizing principles and everything. Then you have the heart of it, which is basically core capabilities. I break it into technological ecosystem, SDLC and compliance as code, because this is what I find most relevant in the FSI. And then several enablers, people and tech. Just bear with Albon, be just one of them. And then you have a vision, you agree how to do it, you have enabled the capabilities, then you need to roll it out. And most importantly, to realize the benefits. So a little bit of thoughts of why I've break into these 3. So you need to say why you're doing it and who is doing it to begin with. And then basically once you have done that, you need to translate the vision from up here to intelligence and to capability. So basically what are you gonna do? Having those enabled, and of course it's not really that waterfall is, but it's for the sake of the framework, you turn them into motion. So how do we do it and when do we do it? I don't have time to cover all of it. It's close to 400 pages, this one that talks about everything. So I'm gonna focus on specific things. I'm gonna focus on OKRs, the Enterprise Architecture Center of Excellence, a couple of tips on SDLC engineering, how to create a tactical adoption but also reconcile it with the organic one, and then a little bit of a different approach, not really different approach, but a bit away from the mainstream of how to realize benefits. So let's get started. What is DevOps? And actually, I have a lot of clients, different financial service institutions. I'm not saying it to brag about it, it's my reality. And every time that I get to meet a new one, the first question that we ask to each other is, what is DevOps? So how do you define DevOps so we understand yourself and you understand us, and we're going to tell you how we define it. There's no really universal answer, and also this is attributed to the concept itself. You won't really find a universal definition about it. So what I'm telling my clients, also that creates opportunities for me to sell more work, it's what you want to make out of it. So basically the whole thinking is, tell me what you want to achieve, I'll tell you what others are doing, I'll tell you what are the best practices in the industry, let's get together to define your vision. Different places use different approaches based on different parameters, ambition, budget, you name it. But I've seen some of them being repeated across the industry, and these are these ones. So basically people typically what they want to do is to improve time to market, improve resiliency, uplift the skill set of their people, simplify and standardize to reduce cost. They want to become compliant the easiest possible way, improve the ways of working, and there's a big focus on digitalization of customer journeys. This is you as a customer using the mobile bank, but also people within the organization like developers. You all have heard about developer experience as a concept. So it's very important to get started with those. And defining the objectives is also important to define the key results. And I'm gonna get into the loop at the end of it, actually, on where you get started and how you conclude with it, essentially, following the 360 principle. Now, I hope I'm not gonna lose you here. The value proposition of enterprise architecture is something that people in several occasions omit. It is a core part, actually, of your DevOps operating model. First of all, it helps you to define speeds and criticality across your portfolio. And then basically that tells you who needs to move faster, who needs to move fast with a certain speed, who is very critical, and so on. Now, it's important to take a granular approach here for many, many different reasons. First of all, your business owners will ask you to do that because criticality and speed has certain allocation of budget. Also, your regulator will gonna also ask you to do it. So, business critical processes, for instance, are the first ones to become compliant with against different legislations. Let's say GDPR is one of them. So, defining the domains, core banking, capital markets, as I said, and then you need to look into business flows. So if we look into core banking, looking at your deposits, it's one. If we look into equity trading, trading equities and make it flow all the way is another one. Now, it is important to define processes because when you do it on a 360 degree and on an enterprise level, you don't really look in applications and business domains in isolation. There's spillover effect between different business areas and different applications. And if you don't get them and group them into the same ecosystem or value stream, as I have it further below, then it's just a matter of time that the one is going to start breaking the other. Now it's important to target your applications. I don't want to advertise this too, but for the ones you have worked in FSI, you can relate. So Temenos and Frontarina are two big vendor applications in these domains. And then you need to define critical services. So basically, deposits lookup is the one in core banking and equity till capture on the other one. So having this picture then, you can create either value streams or ecosystems or tribes. It depends on the enterprise agility operating model you are using. And then you can group them into areas that they work together on advancing the journey. Now, this is important because you need to define some flagship applications. So some, they need to front run it. You need to ensure cross functionality. So basically, you don't break the value stream in certain cases because some is left behind the journey. You need to pilot autonomy and self-sufficiency because that's what you need to be striving through, offering DevOps services as DevOps capabilities as a service, get them to consume them, and then implement them. You need compliance pilots. When your regulator is going to come in, they're going to tell you, show me your business critical flows. Okay, this is where you need to focus. So it has that benefit. And then it's important what your customers see, right? I picked up those two on purpose because your customer is calling a trader, or not a trader, a sales manager is in essence, to trade equities, but also they're using mobile banking every day. So focusing on services that don't have a direct impact to the face of your client is not really a good approach. Now, we talked a little bit about speeds, and another aspect is relevance. And this is one of the many perspectives. So I'm bringing the platform modernization perspective here. So an enterprise architecture function looking into a DevOps operating model, we need to look at the portfolio, for instance, from a technological perspective, platform perspective. And normally, you're going to bundle it in 4 categories. There's applications that you're going to upgrade and incrementally improve. There's the ones that you're going to refactor or decouple, the ones that you do nothing and sustain, and the ones that you're going to fully replace or divest because you have been acquired, you stop running a business line, you have decommissioning products and stuff. I have here a little bit of a traffic light. And basically that tells you based on the category you belong, how aggressive your DevOps evolution is going to be. So for example, when you need to do incremental improvements or totally refactor, it's going to go pretty high. When you do nothing or sustain it, you just want to make sure that your time to market and reliability characteristics meet expectations, and that's it. And when you're really going to divest something, do you really care about it from a DevOps perspective? Probably not. So this is a little bit of the value proposition of enterprise architecture, super, super vital that organizations often omit. Now, on the next one, SDLC. And this is the heart, this is the core of your adoption. So you can design the best model, you can get buy-in, you can define OKRs. If you don't really have the means, and that's not only technological means, broader means, to enable capabilities that can be consumed, then you won't really probably go far. This is, I don't want to call it my own invention because it sounds pretty big, but I came up with that some years ago because I was working for organizations that they were following typical project management methodologies, and also they were following ITIL for ITSM, and they were struggling to understand how DevOps ensures continuity in your SDLC. So basically I came up with those phases, and I start with continuous design of an application till you continuously operate it. And then if you put them all together, it's your continuous delivery and feedback loops. So basically 4 phases in the way you develop software. Now, in order to develop and release and run software, you need certain capabilities. So the exercise that you need to do is to do a mapping of those into these phases. So I have some examples here. So reference architectures can help you with continuous design, secret management in your CI and CT, also in your CD. So don't don't stick into the word here. There's overlaps, as you can see here with release engineering and observability. Automated deployment verifications can help you to optimize your deployment process, and then have a CM in place can help you to become compliant on who is having access to your services in production. So what is very important now when you look into defining those capabilities at the very beginning is that you're becoming technology agnostic. So what I'm telling my clients all the time is not Jenkins. I don't want to advertise software now. It's not Jenkins, it's a build tool. It's not Grafana, it's a visualization tool. It's not SonarQube, it's a static code analysis tool. So basically at the beginning, become technology agnostic. Many reasons for that. First of all, I haven't come across any big bank that has the same tooling all over the place. You can find everything. So if you associate and attribute things to a single technology, then others might have difficulties to relate to it. Then you gotta go through a lot of changes in your stack. I've seen a lot of CI/CD pipelines changing due to a choice of a public cloud provider. So when people run things on-prem, they use certain technologies. When they start moving to GCP, let's say, then they shift. And then you don't want to give a bad feeling to the organization that some will be advantaged. So let's say you're using Jenkins and you're using GitLab in two different teams, that they compete internally. There's also internal competition in organizations. And you start mentioning GitLab here, the Jenkins team will feel, okay, they are targeted at us, they're gonna put us in a lot of work, we need to migrate everything, while the other ones, we keep having fun. So there's a lot of reasons. Now, it is very important if you look into those capabilities that you look into what is a process, what is a standard, what is a methodology, what is a policy, what is a guideline, and what is a control. So double clicking into each of those, it can belong to many of these. Now, why this is important? You need to explain to people what is good hygiene, what is best practice, and what is mandatory. So from a perspective of understanding what they need to enable and what they need to do is really vital. Then linking again to the benefits, here is the phase that looking into your OKRs as well, you define metrics. So you go across your SDLC. I have a super amazing drawing, actually. I didn't bring it today because it's too busy. And then you go tactically and define metrics. So you have enabled those. They are being consumed. What is important? So from a developer experience perspective, probably it's important how fast you can provision the machine. If you look into your production, probably it's important how fast you can roll back. So you do something, it doesn't go well, how fast can we go back to the previous state so we don't impact anyone? Last step on this one, it looks very simplified here. It's a big, once in one of the banks, believe it or not, we had 31 teams, 3-1, involved into doing it. So basically it can be really a massive exercise if you do it on enterprise level. Last but not least, you need to define ownership. So who owns these capabilities? And ownership in this case, meaning enabling them, offering them as a service, and keep them updated. I'll pick two examples here. On your CM, probably is going to be your CISO or application security, depends on how you call it. On your observability, either you have an observability COE or it's going to be your DevOps COE. So basically, these areas are responsible to identify where they belong in here, make sure this capability is maintained, is interoperable, it fits the big picture, and also be engaged into regulatory talks if this capability is really a control. So for instance, this one is a control in the financial services industry. Next one, relating it back into speed and relevance. So basically, DevOps enterprise at scale, a big endeavor. You need to get started with someone that can really push the boundaries actually and help you to prove results fast, create momentum, create desire. What you need to do is you need to slice the cake of your portfolio, as we saw before, into the core areas. These are real ones from the industry. So basically banks at the moment, they focus on mobile banking, obviously, markets trading and asset management because it generates a lot of revenue, payments for same reasons, open banking for regulatory reasons, but also customer behavior and vertical integration into ecosystems. But what is very important here is you can see these are business applications. It's very important that you bring the technological stack close to it. So public cloud platforms and data technology are coming into the core, and basically they become the same ecosystem. So without those being necessarily used by business users, but creating utilities for the rest. Now, once you have this ecosystem in place, and you need to define the rules of the game, how they play together. Is it community practice you create? Is it advocates? You need to see how you're gonna do it. Definitely also they have dependencies from a business perspective, so you need to mobilize the business people. Then you have created your capabilities and you have associated them to different areas. So each of them owns one. So reference architectures for public cloud, we're gonna get from the enterprise COE. Templated pipelines based on the programming languages we have is gonna be the DevOps COE. the Agile COE is going to help us with the Agile playbook. So if we adopt SAFe or Spotify model or any value streams that you can come up with, they're going to help you with it. Test data provisioning from the test data services, and basically so on. So it is important to create that ecosystem that is going to be detached a little bit from the reality. And it's gonna, I don't want to call it a good and a bad bank. It was a term a boss of mine used to use in one of the banks. So basically what he wanted to do, it never happened for, allow me to call it, political reasons. He wanted to decouple a lot of it. And if he could take it in a different building, he would do that. So they can work on isolation and they can move faster. One of my clients actually at the moment is not really my client, but my company's client has done a similar setup. So has taken people to a completely different building, honestly, and they built a neobank from scratch. Only one API dependency to the legacy of the bank. It's a big UK bank actually. And then get them to work together. Now, the idea of the tactic, and this is a little bit borrowed by the Oxford Dictionary and I have manipulated it, is careful and methodological actions to gain an advantage. And this is gaining an advantage in the market. So get actually to offer better services faster, but also for those to gain an advantage within the organization, but also to create an advantage for the rest of the organization. So basically, if you get the very fast ones to create great public cloud reference architectures and controls and everything, those then you can offer as a service to the rest of the organization. So I already said it, but this is a little bit of elaboration. So your regulator is going to ask you about it. You also need to create an advantage. You're going to definitely have limitations on budget and people. So you don't have as many engineers you need. You will never have all the money you need. So, and sometimes you're going to run out of money because COVID is coming, because cost of living is coming, because your bosses will decide to cut down cost. So you need to go fast. And the most important areas, get them done first. So you get this competitive advantage towards the market. You become compliant, and then let's see what you're going to do with the rest. You want good ground to pilot capabilities. So basically, I can tell you a truth of the business. Mobile banking and markets in every bank are the most advantageous. They acquire ahead. So if you want to enable new technological utilities, you got to go to them because they're ambitious, they've done it before, they can help you to push the boundaries. You need to focus on strategic technological utilities. So public cloud is one of them, definitely. Data technology is another one. Anything around CI/CD pipelines is also very important. And then, as I mentioned before, you need to create solutions that afterwards, they're going to be adapted by the organic ones. The ones that are not part of this family, but still belong in the organization. And now your question, okay, fine with the tacticals, but what about the rest? So how can we create a framework that those guys don't really go far ahead? I mean, I had the boss once in a while, he used to tell me, man, just stop sometimes and look behind you because they are further back. I'm not saying to show off, but it was a real saying. So you need to make sure you keep close with everybody. And this is a little bit of a framework. This one I can say with pride I created. I haven't seen it before anywhere. So you can see a certain level of capabilities here and a certain level here. For the ones that you have DevOps experience, and all of you in this room, I guess you have, you can see this is fairly basic things. This is a little bit more advanced things. These are relatable to any occasion, a circumstance, and any speed and relevance. These are a little bit maybe for cloud, maybe a little bit for more advanced situations. So what you do, you put all your capabilities down, and then you draw a line. And what is below this line is the minimum viable DevOps adoption. And in this minimum viable DevOps adoption, it's applicable to everybody. So your whole organization, not only the tactical, your whole portfolio, apart from the ones that are to be decommissioned, or apart from the ones that are normally category 4, which is applications that you use internally for accounting and such purposes. They don't really have a business and client impact. And these are the ones that you primarily base on DevOps control. So basically controls is a term in the industry of certain things that you need to adhere to in order to become compliant. And this is a very good mechanism to use the controls in this case, because when you need to adopt controls, you need to do it anyway. Your regulator is going to come after you anyway. And then there is budget for it. So you can sneak in a DevOps evolution into compliance work, and then basically get people to understand why they need to do it, get the budget secure, and also get the focus because it has regulatory impact. I'm not going to tell you that if you don't do it, they're going to take your license away. That's a little bit of an overstatement in the industry. It doesn't really happen, especially if you're globally systemic. But I have a very nice thing of explaining to your people why certain things are important. And then your tactical adoption is up in here. And this is then context specific. And it's primarily your flagships, some of the areas that we spoke already about, but you don't only stick into those ones. So the ones that they have the appetite and the ones that they have the capabilities, they can go ahead. In many organizations, you can find areas that are not really fancy and are not considered flagships to be quite advanced simply because they have great engineers. And basically, they get to align very well with your product owners and they do great things that they sneak into development work in the backlog. So it doesn't necessarily create two worlds in essence. So wrapping it up, organic, the bottom and up, and tactical only the ones ahead. So it's very important to typify this framework actually to explain to people, because what can happen, it can have a feeling of exclusion. So basically people seeing fancy things up in here, not really fancy things down here, and they basically feel that you want to divide the organization into good and bad ones that can have people impact. So it's very important to make the motivation behind this framework clear and tell people that it is a red line because we all need to get in sync and become compliant and do certain benefit realization. But if you have the capabilities and the time, you can go up in here. No one is going to hold you back. Benefit realization. In many cases, a disaster, actually. I've seen and heard a lot of stories that there were millions invested, and when people were looking for benefits, they couldn't find them. Not necessarily because they didn't deliver them, but because they didn't define early enough how they're going to do the process. And then data is a big challenge in this case. What I have seen in organizations, and I don't want to sound like bad mouthing a certain publication in the industry, is going after 4 mainstream metrics. Lead time, change to failure, you know all these 4. But then this basically gets you to lose the big picture. So you just focus into certain things that don't really tell you the truth. What I propose is to get away from KPIs, because KPIs, the I in the acronym KPI stands for indicator. You need to define targets. An indication is an indication only. A target is something more specific you need to meet. And then basically get to define certain metrics, custom ones. I cover customization here. I don't like, especially in this bit, because benefit realization is really context specific, because your ambition and vision is also context specific. I don't like to go for typified things. I like customization. Then define metrics that they help you to measure how you gradually get into meeting that target. So the difference a little bit between the two, because it's a little bit blurry if you talk to people. So the KPTs is on enterprise level. So imagine this is your group CIO with the group CEO looking at the state. The metrics is a little bit on business level. So basically imagine our markets friends sitting down and see how release velocity is improving within their world. Then high level target perspective. So this can tell you that you all need to reach that goal. Well, this is a little bit more low level progress perspective. So how do we get there and how far we are? These are harmonious across your portfolio. So these 10 things that they look alike, these are custom and are based on relevance and speeds. That's why I mentioned in the beginning the relevance is hitting all your operating model. And then this is used for evolution decision making. So how much money do we have? Where do we need to focus? When do we engage the regulator and everything? Why this is more for local evolution decision making. So are we spending so much time on testing? Do we have enough automation around ITSM? So you can see the different levels. A little bit of examples to explain it. So I'm picking these OKRs that we discussed at the beginning, and then let's pick the improved time to market. So all ultra and highly critical applications, this is application criticality levels in the industry, have met the time to market targets. And this can be whatever. The metric you're using for this one is release velocity. So basically, normally it is commit to production. That's what normal organizations do. And then your release velocity is everything in between. On compliance as code, all your applications have met the DevOps controls, and then automated evidence velocity. So how automated is your proof that you have become compliant? So that gives you a little bit of the thinking how to balance a target of an enterprise level with a gradual assessment of progress on a local level. Now there's a trick in here, actually. And I talked about indicators before. It's been hidden down there. It says the rectangle is proof of success. The cycle is indication of success. So you have to be very careful in here that not all of them are necessarily proof of success. Some are just an indication. I'll just give you an example that I've seen mostly in the industry, right? So automated evidence velocity. Let's say that it is 20 minutes across your release velocity. But do you know actually if you're compliant? the fact that you have automated evidence doesn't necessarily make you compliant. Or do you know that they don't produce the evidence of the last release? I've seen that before, actually. So it happened that I was running an SRE function in one of the banks, and I noticed that one of the value streams that I was running the SRE stuff for them, for 2 releases in a row, they delivered the same evidence. Why? Because they haven't done any progress. But we caught it on the change request. So basically, you need to be very careful on what really tells you that you have improved, and tells a good story also for your business partners, your clients, and your regulator, and what you need to double click on because it doesn't necessarily tell the truth. Yeah, actually, that was it. I hope it wasn't that fast. It was a pleasure. I'd like to thank you a lot. If you found it interesting, it has really been just a sneak peek. I've written this one. Is it honestly a complete 360 playbook that has too many more frameworks and actual examples of adoptions in the financial services industry. Thank you very much. So the first 5 ones, now that they ask a question, we're gonna be pleased to give you a copy of the book. Actually, I can't even see you, so somebody needs to help me a little bit.
Maybe is there any question? Yeah.
How are you working with PCI DSS compliance, and what should be the best way how to process credit card informations?
What are you asking me now? Super tough one. So basically, that is what I call policy as code. Then ideally, you do create a framework that is triggered from your CI/CD pipeline. It has some automated script validation. So every time that you plug in a new source that delivers information, it does run the script and finds insufficiencies in the information covered. Then hopefully you have already created some remediating actions that once the script is failing, they're being applying, revalidating it, and then process the data. But it's a really big discussion, actually, this one. I would say the answer is policy as code. It should be part of your reference architecture of data streaming, and it should be triggered by your CI/CD pipeline. To put it short.
Okay. Thank you a lot.
Any other question?
Okay. Then I saw you. We'll come to you. I have a little bit of astigmatism, sorry, and the lights are killing me.
Thank you very much. Hello, you probably cannot see me.
No.
I'm in almost last row. Sorry for that. So thank you very much for your presentation. This is a lot of condensed knowledge and a lot of condensed insights. So my question is, what's your take on red tape and indecisiveness and paralysis when it comes to different compliance stakeholders in a project?
It is a mistake, actually. And now, let me tell you a personal story, actually. When I was writing the book, I was concerned. Can we go back to the deck at all? So I'll tell you what I was concerned about, but I decided to keep it. You talk about, I was concerned about the color of this line. It looks like a red tape, right? So I red taped it. So basically, red tape gives wrong motifs, in my opinion.
Yes. I'm specifically referring to one of my experiences with a financial institution, and basically different stakeholders were responsible for different rule sets, like the PCI DSS, then different for GDPR, different for German BaFin restrictions and BAIT regulations. And then they were all pushing for very different things, and platform engineering team was just completely stuck because they couldn't move.
I don't know if I have the golden, allow me to flip the slides. I'm sorry if it is annoying. I'll go back in here. I have the approach. I don't know if it's the answer in every context, and it's hidden in here. That's why I highlight it like that. So basically, what I'm proposing to my clients and what I have done historically is I gather all these lads and I tell them, guys, I have a software development lifecycle. It is a new one. It is to enable our DevOps evolution. I want to collectively collect your requirements, map them to that SDLC, map them to the technological assets so they don't slow the organization down, make sure that they're interoperable so the one is not breaking the other, and I want coalition on how often we need to become compliant, harmony on the evidence, to whom do we provide the evidence, and so on. So you need to bring them together, actually. Extremely difficult. I've done it once. Extremely difficult, but
that's why I'm asking for some best practices from your experience.
It does require,
painful sometimes.
I have a framework. I've spoken about it so many times. I'm sorry. I have a framework in the book, chapter number 8, and I'm explaining how we've done it in different places. primarily it does require coalition of your big stakeholders, and then a little bit what I call regulatory bandwagoning. Because in some cases, implementing one regulation can come into conflict with another one. So you need also to get your regulators a little bit together, especially if you're multi-region. So if you hear different things in Europe and different in Asia, then it's really complex.
Thank you very much. Thanks again.
Thank you. There was one more.
Can we? There. It happens that I saw him. I don't know him.
Hello, thank you for your topic, and I have a question about you're talking about the DevOps in the bank, and I was working as DevOps engineer in the bank, and one of the main problem which my team have met, and I was trying to solve as a lead engineer, it's about the, you know that one of the key of DevOps is time to market and faster releases, but in the bank it's kind of strict, because you need some kind of tickets, you need approving by the different managers, and how do you do?
I have the answer. Again,
Yes.
I'm going to refer to the book, License to Continuously Deliver. That's how I call it. So basically, certain criteria of quality, reliability, compliance, business behavior, customer consumption that create what you call a license to continuously deliver. And if you follow them, you get a golden ticket and you can release how often you want, because people trust you. They see your velocity, they compare with your reliability and compliance, it all looks good, thumbs up. They're gonna come and do spot checks to you to make sure that you behave correctly, and that is it. And it's not a fallacy. I've seen it in 2 places actually. It can happen.
Okay, thank you.
So that's my answer to that one, or how to overcome it.
Anyone else?
There was somebody actually, and then. Oh,
Thank you.
hi.
Yeah, hi. I think at the one of the very first slides you mentioned, right, that there's, let's say, a COE team, or let's say DevOps team, observability team, right, that's owning, let's say, monitoring, alerting part. I'm just wondering, like, what's the benefit or the downside of having it done centrally rather than the individual teams doing it themselves?
An amazingly good question. So basically, it's a level of federation. That's how we call it in the industry. I'm principally against having a single team servicing an organization of 10,000 developers. Some banks have 10,000 developers. So going back to the tactical approach, what I propose, and I'm apologies for flipping the slides. So those guys that you define, they can build it, run it, own it across capabilities if they can. So basically, a central team, in my opinion, it is something that is more going to serve the organic adoption. The flagships can do it themselves, and I've seen it doing it themselves. So you need, and that's why I'm calling it here autonomy is self-sufficiency. So if those guys prove they can do it themselves, then basically they should be able to do it themselves. You must find the fine hybrid balance. So those guys are self-sufficient, they've proven it, they have the skills, they have the budget. You lads that you don't need to be that aggressive and move so fast, you need to rely on the central team. So I'm against, I call it organizing principles, and those need to be hybrid. So those guys follow into what I call rotational, while the other ones are on the fixed organizing principles.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
More, I think
We've
there.
got actually. I've seen you with the blue one. He's in there.
I have maybe a question a little bit more detailed. For example, regulation anti-money laundering, because each bank should have it. And how you prefer deal with that? Because we could collect this new regularity, new data. We could collect separately as a separate system, or we should use the data which we have inside in the bank and transform them, adapt.
This is a very good question. It happened. Actually, I feel happy because all your questions I have answers in those pages. So basically, I'm writing in this book, chapter 8, how we delivered FRTB and MiFID II. In 2 of the banks. So basically, you need to understand the requirements. You need to understand whether you can make sense and use of your legacy. If you don't, because you don't have data lineage, because you don't have any automatic compliance on that one, because you maybe have performance issues on the big data warehouses, then you need to find a way to decouple it. So what we've done in one of the cases, and I have it in the book, we did create different operational data storages for different regulatory purposes as an approach. And those were individual microservices built and deployed. And then they had different identity and access management based on different business segments. So people could exercise, do maybe stress testing of the portfolios and stuff without disturbing others. And then we did build a Kafka as a communication layer among them in cases that we had to do reconciliation and everything. So it depends. If your legacy is really legacy and really holds you back, you got to be very generous on redoing it. Now, if it's not that really legacy and you can just twist it and tickle it, you can just build on top of it, basically. It's really context specific.
Okay, thanks.
Now, we don't have more books left, but do we have time for questions?
Maybe one. You can still ask question.
You can catch me outside, actually.
Okay.
If I may, just one question from my end. I can barely see you, but can you raise your hands who is working or has worked in the financial service industry? Oui. Okay. A lot. It is great.
Yeah. Then if you have questions, so you can use Slido for further questions. And thank you, Spyridon, for your great talk.
Thank you very much for
and
having
please accept this little gift.
Cheers. Thank you
for
very
a great
much.
talk.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.